Welcome back to the channel, my spooky friends. Tonight we venture into the haunting world of abandoned movie soundstages. These hollowed-out giants, once bustling with life and creativity, now stand as eerie monuments to forgotten stories. Our first tale takes us back to the golden age of Hollywood, a time when the silver screen was filled with glamour and mystery. To a sprawling soundstage draped in darkness, where the echoes of past productions still lingered in the air. On a chilly night shoot, a renowned actor, Jack, known for his tough guy persona, had an encounter that chilled him to his core. Jack was a seasoned actor, having spent countless nights on set, but this night was different. Jack often stayed late, rehearsing lines, perfecting his performance. He believed that the quiet of the night allowed him to connect more deeply with his character. On this night, he found himself alone on set. The rest of the crew, long gone. The silence was almost deafening, broken only by the occasional creak of the old building. As he ran through his lines, a movement in the shadows caught his eye. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but enough to make him pause. He paused, peering into the darkness, his heart pounding. The shadows seemed to dance and shift, playing tricks on his mind. For a moment he saw nothing, attributing the movement to his tired eyes. He shook his head, trying to dismiss the unease that was creeping over him. But then, a figure shrouded in shadow appeared, standing motionless. It was as if the darkness itself had taken form. Jack tried to rationalize the sighting, thinking it was a crew member playing a prank. He had heard stories of such pranks before. He called out, but there was no answer. The silence was thick, almost tangible, pressing in on him from all sides. Gathering his courage, Jack approached the figure, feeling a cold emanating from the spot. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if an unseen force was trying to hold him back. As he drew closer, the figure turned, revealing the face of a woman, pale as moonlight, with eyes burning with an eerie light. Her presence was both mesmerizing and terrifying. Her expression was a chilling mixture of sorrow and rage. It was as if she carried the weight of countless untold stories and unfulfilled dreams. Jack froze, his blood turning to ice. He had faced many challenges in his career, but nothing had prepared him for this. The ghostly woman stared at him, her gaze piercing his soul. It felt as though she could see every secret, every fear he had ever harbored. Then, as quickly as she appeared, she vanished, leaving Jack trembling in the cold silence. The air seemed to grow warmer, but the chill in his bones remained. From that day forward, Jack refused to set foot in that sound stage again. The memory of that night haunted him, a constant reminder of the unknown. The story of Jack's encounter spread through the studio, whispered among crew members. It became a legend, a tale told to new actors and crew as a warning. Some dismissed it as the ramblings of a tired actor, but others knew there was something sinister lurking in the shadows. The soundstage took on a new life, its dark corners filled with whispered fears. The ghostly woman, her chilling gaze, haunted Jack, a constant reminder of the darkness beneath the glamorous world he inhabited. He could never escape the feeling that she was watching, waiting for him to return. Our next tale takes us to a different soundstage, abandoned after a series of unsettling events. This place, once bustling with creativity and life, now stands as a haunting reminder of its past. This soundstage had a long history, used for countless productions. It was a place where dreams were brought to life, where stories were told, and where magic was made. But beneath the glamour there was a palpable sense of unease. The walls seemed to whisper secrets, and the air was thick with an unspoken tension. It began subtly, with crew members hearing strange noises and whispers. These sounds were faint at first, almost imperceptible, but they grew louder and more persistent over time. Objects moved mysteriously. Lights flickered and shadows danced at the edge of their vision. It was as if the very fabric of reality was being manipulated by unseen forces. At first, these incidents were dismissed as pranks. The crew laughed it off, attributing the strange occurrences to overactive imaginations or practical jokes. But as they grew more frequent, a sense of dread settled over the production. The laughter faded, replaced by nervous glances and hushed conversations. The whispers became clearer, often whispering names or phrases that sent chills down spines. It was as if the shadows themselves were trying to communicate, to warn, or to threaten. One incident proved to be the tipping point. It was a moment that would forever change the way the crew viewed the soundstage. During a late-night shoot, a young sound technician named Sarah had an encounter that stayed with her forever. She was dedicated to her work, often staying late to ensure everything was perfect. Sarah was working alone in the sound booth, monitoring the audio feed. The room was silent except for the hum of the equipment and the faint sounds from the set. As the scene reached its climax, Sarah felt a cold shiver run down her spine. It was an inexplicable sensation, as if an icy hand had brushed against her. She glanced up, drawn to the soundproof glass separating the booth from the stage. Her eyes searched the darkness, trying to make sense of what she was feeling. There, standing in the shadows, was a figure, its form obscured by darkness. It was motionless, yet its presence was overwhelming. Sarah's heart skipped a beat. She couldn't tear her eyes away from the figure, her mind racing with questions and fears. She sensed the figure was watching the actors, its presence radiating menace. It was as if it was waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Fear gripped her, stealing her breath. She felt paralyzed, unable to move or speak. She tried to call out, but no sound escaped her lips. It was as if the very air had been sucked from the room. The figure moved towards the set, its movements fluid and unnatural. It seemed to glide rather than walk, its form shifting and changing with each step. Just as it reached the edge, the lights flickered violently, plunging the soundstage into darkness. The sudden blackness was suffocating, amplifying the terror in the room. When the lights flickered back on, the figure was gone, leaving Sarah trembling with fear. The room was empty, but the sense of dread lingered, a haunting reminder of what she had witnessed. Our final tale is the story of a renowned horror director, Edward, who found himself face to face with a horror that transcended fiction. Edward had always been fascinated by the macabre, and his films were a testament to his ability to bring nightmares to life on the big screen. His reputation in the industry was built on his unique ability to create an atmosphere of dread and suspense that left audiences on the edge of their seats. Edward was known for his meticulous attention to detail and his commitment to realism. He believed that the key to a truly terrifying film was to make the audience feel as if they were part of the story, experiencing the fear firsthand. This dedication often led him to seek out the most authentic and unsettling locations for his shoots. For his latest project, he sought the perfect location, a place exuding decay and despair. He wanted a setting that would not only serve as a backdrop for his film, but also enhance the overall sense of unease and foreboding. His search took him to many abandoned and forgotten places, each with its own dark history. His search led him to an abandoned soundstage on the outskirts of the city. This soundstage had once been a bustling hub of creativity and innovation, but now it stood silent and forgotten, a relic of a bygone era. The air was thick with the memories of countless productions, and the walls seemed to whisper secrets of the past. The soundstage, once a grand affair, now stood as a decaying relic. The once vibrant sets were now covered in dust and cobwebs, and the equipment lay broken and rusting. It was a place that had seen better days, but to Edward, it was perfect. The decay and neglect only added to the atmosphere he wanted to create. Edward was captivated by its eerie beauty and knew he had found the perfect location. He could already envision the scenes he would shoot there, each one more terrifying than the last. The soundstage seemed to call to him, beckoning him to uncover its secrets and bring them to life on film. Little did he know, he was stepping into a nightmare far more real than anything he could conceive. The soundstage held a dark secret, one that had been buried for years, waiting for someone like Edward to awaken it. As Edward and his team scouted the location, they felt an unseen presence. It was as if the very walls were watching them, waiting for the right moment to reveal their hidden horrors. The atmosphere was thick with tension, and even the most skeptical members of the crew couldn't shake the feeling that they were not alone. One evening, Edward decided to stay late, to soak in the atmosphere. He wanted to experience the soundstage in its most natural state, without the distractions of his crew. As the sun set and darkness enveloped the building, he felt a sense of anticipation, as if something was about to happen. As darkness enveloped the soundstage, Edward was drawn to the main stage. It was the heart of the building, the place where countless actors had performed and countless stories had been told. He felt a connection to the space, as if it were speaking to him, urging him to listen. He stood in the center, listening to the silence, feeling the weight of the Soundstages' history. The air was heavy with the echoes of the past, and Edward could almost hear the voices of those who had come before him. It was a moment of profound connection, one that he would never forget. It was then that he heard a soft, mournful sigh. It was a sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, filling the space with a sense of sorrow and loss. Edward's heart began to race, and he felt a chill run down his spine. Edward's eyes snapped open, his heart pounding. He had never experienced anything like this before, and he knew that something was terribly wrong. The soundstage, once a place of creativity and inspiration, had become a place of fear and dread. He spun around, searching the darkness, but he was alone. The shadows seemed to move and shift, playing tricks on his mind. He tried to convince himself that it was just his imagination, but deep down he knew that something was there, watching him. He tried to convince himself it was just the wind, but deep down, he knew something was amiss. The feeling of being watched was too strong to ignore, and he couldn't shake the sense of impending doom that hung over him. As he turned to leave, he felt a cold hand grip his shoulder. The touch was icy and sent a jolt of fear through his body. He froze, unable to move, as the realization of what was happening began to sink in. Edward froze, his blood turning to ice. He could feel the presence behind him, and he knew that he was not alone. The fear was overwhelming, and he struggled to keep his composure. He slowly turned, coming face to face with a figure materializing from the shadows. The figure was tall and gaunt, with hollow eyes that seemed to pierce through Edward's soul. It was a sight that would haunt him for the rest of his life. The figure, tall and gaunt, wore a tattered suit, and his eyes burned into Edward's soul. There was a sense of malevolence in those eyes, a warning that Edward was not welcome in this place. The figure whispered, "This is my domain, and you are not welcome here." The voice was cold and filled with anger, sending a shiver down Edward's spine. He knew that he had to leave, but his legs felt like lead, and he couldn't move. The figure vanished, leaving Edward trembling on the soundstage floor. The fear and shock were too much for him to handle, and he collapsed, unable to comprehend what had just happened. Edward never returned, the memory of the ghostly figure forever etched into his mind. The experience had changed him, and he could no longer find joy in his work. The soundstage, once a place of inspiration, had become a place of nightmares, and Edward knew that he would never be the same again. Thank you for joining us on this terrifying journey through the haunted halls of abandoned movie soundstages. If you enjoyed these stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Until next time, sleep tight and remember, the shadows hold more than just darkness. Stay spooky.